Okay, want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. We had a closed session, so our meeting had already begun, and we watched a presentation by the students showing us some of the wonderful things they do in math, and we'll hear more about it in a few minutes. Do you have any comments? Okay. One thing I want to say just before, as a reminder, our next board meeting is on June 6th, and we're going to have we'll be having the district celebration over at Grover, so our meeting will be held there. So I'm going to say it, I'll say it at the end of the meeting, but in case anybody leaves before that, I just want to remind people now. Okay, actually the next item on the agenda is the grade 4 math program redesign. I think Martin wants to speak to it.
Sure. Good evening. It's my pleasure to be able to set up the presentation we're about to see this evening. As I reflect back, it's a little hard to believe that it's been a year and a half since December 2015 when the board voted on the recommendation of the administration to redesign the upper elementary math program. And here we are a year and a half later, basically at the end of our first year of implementation, to be able to give the board a full update of how this year has gone. First and foremost, I see there are several teachers in the audience, and I do want to thank the teachers because without the work that they've done this year, frankly, every single day, day in and day out, making it a reality for our students, none of this would have really mattered. So we made a promise. We made a promise to the community a year and a half ago about the work that we would do in terms of math instruction, and it's because of the work that you've been doing in class every day that we've been able to deliver on that promise. So thank you for that. This evening we're going to hear from three individuals, Ms. Melissa Pearson, who's the K-5 math supervisor, who's done yeoman's work with a lot of support, as she'll tell you, but yeoman's work to be able to make this happen, and our two teacher resource specialists, Mr. Hugh Green, who works in Millstone School, and Ms. Allie Nass, who works here at the Village School, and they've been supporting the teachers this year in the work, and they're going to give you an update on what's transpired this year and the work that we've done with the 4th grade redesign. So, Ms. Pearson, thank you.
Okay, good evening. Tonight, as Mr. Smith said, that we are going to be providing an update about all of the great work that has been happening this year with our 4th grade team of teachers to support the redesign of the math. I just want to say another quick thank you to Mr. Malakaitis and his class for coming and showcasing all of the work that you've been doing this year. The way that we've structured this, I'm going to provide an overview of the work, the structures that we've implemented to deliver the instruction, and then Mr. Green and Mrs. Nass are going to discuss their work that they've done with the teachers. Throughout the presentation, you're going to see quotes. I'm not going to read the quotes to you, but there will be quotes throughout the presentation from our students. And these quotes came from the work that Suzanne Carbonaro from Rider University has done with our staff this year. And at the end of our presentation, we will have a video that highlights the hard work of our teacher students and our teacher resource specialists. One of the major themes of the work this year has been around the idea of growth mindset, specifically the work of Dr. Jo Bowler of Stanford University, and her work specifically is in mathematics and growth mindset. Part of this work has been for students and teachers to reframe their thinking about math, instead of being a series of right and wrong answers, but as Dr. Bowler puts it, we need to see math in an acknowledgement of the creative and interpretive nature of mathematics. Mathematics is a broad and multidimensional subject that requires reasoning, creativity, connection making, interpretation of methods. It is a set of ideas that helps illuminate the world, and it is constantly changing. Math problems should encourage and acknowledge the different ways in which people see mathematics and the different pathways they take to solve problems. When these changes happen with students and teachers, we engage in the math more deeply and well. And that is from her book, Mathematical Mindsets. This set the foundation for the work that we've done with teachers all year long. Like I said before, in partnership with Suzanne Carbonaro from Rider University, Mr. Green and Mrs. Nass conducted a series of interviews with our 4th grade students. There are some quotes here from our students about growth mindset. Throughout our work this year, teachers have also had more of a growth mindset about the content and the teaching of mathematics. When we talk about having a growth mindset, it is best to look at the work of Dr. Carol Dweck, also of Stanford, where she has spent her career researching mindsets. In her words, growth mindset is the belief that your basic qualities are things that you can cultivate through your efforts. It is about stretching yourself to learn something new and being open to challenges. People with growth mindsets see challenges and failures as opportunities to learn, grow, and improve skills. Growth mindset is something that we believe in and value. This is our shared vision of math learning. This has also set the foundation for the work. All learners should have access to rigorous, high-level mathematical content in an environment where risk-taking, deep conceptual understanding, and growth mindset are the norm. The ideas in this chart, while they're a little hard to read, are what our teachers used to think and now know about mathematics after going through our Math Institute this summer. Mr. Green and Mrs. Nass will talk a little bit more about that work in a minute. The chart represents the shifts in mindsets about equity, learning outcomes, the power of math talk, flexibility, questioning, visible thinking, the use of manipulatives, and the importance of community building. When we talk about providing all students access to rigorous mathematics content delivered through the implementation of high-level open-ended tasks, we can look at tasks like this one shared by our math workshop expert and author Jennifer Lemp during a recent presentation. Students can pull from a variety of strategies to solve a problem like this. The teacher facilitates classroom discussion around the different strategies to allow all students to participate and grow in their thinking. This slide shows 7 possible solutions to this problem. They all come to the same answer, but the approach that the student takes is different. Problems like this open the door for all students to participate, and students can begin making connections between the strategies. Workshop teaching provides different structures for the teacher to facilitate learning. Workshop teaching never looks the same. Depending on the content, the goal, teachers may use whole group rich tasks, like the flower pot problem on the last slide, to teach topics such as fractions, or the teacher may employ stations or center activities for students to work in small group or partnerships. This allows for the teachers to work with small groups of students on a particular skill. While the structure varies, students begin and end the lesson together, providing opportunities for the students to reflect on their learning. Workshop teaching provides a structured environment where the teacher utilizes ongoing assessment to continuously monitor and meet the needs of his or her class. One of the components of Math Workshop is a number routine or a number talk. On this slide here, what a number talk is, or a number sense routine, gives a student open forum to share their thinking, which is something that more and more teachers are using, not just in 4th grade, but throughout our K-5 math communities. This gives students an opportunity to build an argument and justify their thinking. The above examples that are on here, there's actually 2. There are actually non-number examples that you can use to start building a community of math learners. Students are introduced to looking at something like the spider, the cheetah, and the ladybug, and deciding which one doesn't belong. From there, you build into using other ways to talk about numbers that don't belong, which can include numbers or geometric figures or equations. The other one that's on this page is called a dot talk, is a second example. Students are shown dots for a few seconds, and then a conversation ensues around how the students perceive the dots to come up with the total. A more traditional number talk looks like this here. This is taken from Joe Bowler's site, U Cubed, where students can have a conversation around 18 times 5. This type of number sense routine promotes math thinking and builds your community of learners. And looking here, you can see that there are 6 different ways that a child could approach solving 18 times 5. This invites everybody into the conversation and helps build that number fluency in a way that doesn't look as traditional as we're used to. We have focused on implementing more rich tasks in math class. The above quotes are from our students about math learning this year. Rich tasks are ones that have a familiar context with multiple entry points, aligned to the current math standards, and provide students with opportunities to engage in reasoning strategies that promote critical thinking to solve problems. This provides students opportunities to pose interesting questions in the context of a real-world problem, not just solve problems. They can make a plan, work, and reflect on the choices they made and their progress towards a goal in a math classroom. It also invites them to make meaning of their learning. And like we've said before, community is at the heart of the classroom. It provides students a space to ask questions and to challenge themselves in a place that is safe and caring. Students get to see different ideas where we can ask students, have you seen a problem like this before? How did you approach it? It's a way that we can keep expanding their repertoire of strategies within the classroom. Another place that we focused this work this year was on effective feedback. Feedback comes in many forms. It's not always just giving feedback to the students. Feedback also is peer-to-peer, and it's not just in math. This is something that we've talked about across the board. According to the research of Hattie and Timperley, feedback is one of the most important influences on learning and achievement. In an interview, Hattie emphasized that the most powerful feedback is given from student to teacher. The feedback allows the teachers to see learning through the eyes of their students. It makes learning visible and facilitates the planning of the next steps. The feedback that students receive from their teacher is also vital. It enables students to progress towards challenging learning intention and goals.
Over the summer, we hosted the fourth grade Teachers in Math Summer Institute to prepare them for the new challenges they face in the upcoming school year. Our goal was to introduce them to and prepare them for the math workshop and the components of our shared vision. We began each day with a book club discussion and activities from Joe Bowler's book, Mathematical Mindsets. Teachers were engaged in a variety of activities that included high-quality tasks, feedback, formative assessment, manipulatives, and problem-solving. There was time allotted to the reflection, and many rich discussions ensued.
One of the many components that we had in our Summer Institute was Mrs. Marianne Carnival was able to model math instruction for 1 hour each day to the teachers. We had students coming in, and she was able to model the various different structures that you could be using in your math classroom. This modeling is a version of what Dr. Hattie describes as micro-teaching, and our Summer Institute was, to us, it was the first step in building that confidence for our teachers, that they could deliver the type of math instruction that aligned to the shared vision that we all had when we came into this a year and a half ago. Over the course of the year, the teachers participated in high-level professional development and collaboration with their colleagues to carry that work forward. Through the year, the teachers have a much stronger belief in their capabilities as math teachers. And this chart is actually some of the work that Suzanne Carbonero from Rider University assisted us with. The teachers took a survey at the beginning of this school year, and then most recently in late spring, they took a post-survey to talk a little bit about some of the work that they had done this year. So one of the big things that we took from this was the capabilities of the teachers grew tremendously over the course of the year. The first one, their ability to provide students with opportunities to learn at more than one cognitive and or performance level grew from a 2.85 to a 3.72. And as you can see in the rest of the chart, their capabilities, their belief in themselves, and their ability to deliver the type of instruction that we were aiming for grew tremendously based on this survey. So throughout the course of the year, Mr. Green and I, we worked with the teachers very often to do some of the professional learning for them. One of the things that we did was weekly we met with the teachers in a PLC or flex session. We know that kids learn best when they're in a community of learners, in a community of thinkers, and we've tried to do that a lot in our math classrooms. So we realized that if teachers could learn in that same fashion, collaborating with one another, then we would get some of the best work. We wanted to promote a community of collaboration and inquiry and reflection with our teachers, just like we are asking them to do with their students. So we wanted to do that same thing. So at least once a week, the teachers from Village or Millstone would meet with myself or Mr. Green or one of our other teacher resource specialists to do some of the math work together. So some of the topics that we were able to cover this year, we did a lot of structured reflections after larger PD events where we would sit down and reflect on our learning and create some goals for ourselves going forward, and then go back to those goals and think about, kind of our own trajectory of learning and how we're doing with that. Another thing we would do is each time we were given new manipulatives, we would try to bring those into our PLC or flex sessions to talk about them and explore them and think about how can we use these with kids and how can this benefit some of the instruction that we're doing with our students. We did a lot of work on promoting math talk. That was a big jump for us this year in math. A lot of the conversations that the kids were having were growing tremendously, and we wanted to talk about the ways in which we can try to promote more of that conversation and get that conversation rolling with our kids. We did some higher order thinking math tasks like Pascal's triangle. We also unpacked the curriculum several times each time we were going through a new unit of study. We talked about flexible grouping and how we can use different assessment data to group our kids strategically. And we had a lot of discourse just around the math units and the big ideas and the types of things that we should be teaching. Toward the end of the year, we started simulating a math workshop with our teachers, so we would do the same thing with them as they were doing with the kids. And Mr. Green and I would sit down and strategically select the tasks or problems or games that we would cover, wide range of abilities, a wide range of mathematical topics. We realized that having teachers do the same type of math that the students were doing made them more comfortable with delivering the content and bringing those tasks into their classroom. But it promoted great conversation about the task itself. How can this be used? What types of students would I use this with? Is this a whole group? Is this a partnership? Or is this a small group? And we were also able to anticipate misconceptions that the students would have with that topic, roadblocks that they would come to, difficulties that they would have, ways that we could ratchet it up for some of the kids that might need that.
Some of you may or may not know, I was the A&E math teacher here for a lot of years and created an awful lot of what we did in the A&E classroom. With that in mind, we've taken that material, and I've seen it personally, I've delivered it personally in classrooms throughout the fourth grade. We've raised the lessons, and you have to see it to believe it. The kids in the classroom, they see these, they get involved in these really rich tasks, and you saw some of it out there in the hallway. They're so enthused now. You walk into a classroom and everybody's engaged all the time. It's just tremendous. It's really a wonderful thing we've been doing with that. So working in our PLCs, modeling and doing collaboration with the teachers, we're able to bring that to them and help the teachers to really feel better about trying to do these things themselves. We also attend conferences. We've attended this past year NCTM, and I've attended that over the years as it is, but I really appreciate the district allowing us to go to do these things. We've seen well-known math educators like Dan Meyer, John Sangiovanni, Jennifer Lemp, Edward Nolan, and Graham Fletcher. Those names may not mean anything to you, but they're really the movers and shakers in math education right now. They're the young lions. They're the ones that have made the major changes in making things much more interesting for the children to learn in. We've attended sessions that provided us with strategies and techniques for delivering engaging professional development. Our attendance at professional conferences such as this is critical to keeping current with pedagogy and the direction of math education, and it allows us to disseminate the information to the teachers who are unable to attend.
One of the names that Hugh mentioned that we were able to see at NCTM was Jennifer Lemp. She's someone who has a tremendous amount of knowledge behind math workshops. She actually just recently authored a book that we are waiting patiently to grab about math workshops. So we were honored to have her come to West Windsor-Plainsboro and do a workshop for our fourth grade staff back in February. Some of the topics that she covered during her session were improving number sense through some of those number sense routines that Melissa highlighted earlier in the presentation. She gave the teachers a ton of ideas on how to do that, and even just how to facilitate that conversation, little tips on how to get the kids to share more, to learn more, and how to learn from one another. She also gave us a lot of instructional strategies that promote some hands-on learning. So she modeled a lot of mini lessons and ways in which to present the content in an interesting way and a way that they have materials in front of them that they can learn from. She also gave us some tips and strategies for student reflection, them being able to reflect on their own learning and create some goals for themselves as math learners. She showed us a lot of different manipulatives and how we can use them in different ways that we hadn't considered before, and then tips for getting the kids to use them more frequently, and knowing that math manipulatives are not something that only struggling math students use. But in fact, it's quite the opposite. All students should be using math manipulatives to have that concrete understanding that they maybe wouldn't necessarily have if they weren't using manipulatives. So she gave us a lot of tips and strategies for that. She also helped us promoting a community of math learners, and she did that through some of the tasks and things that she was presenting, but also ways in which that we can change our language as teachers that will help to promote that type of community in our classroom. She believes wholeheartedly in growth mindset, as we do as well, so she was giving us ideas on just little ways to change the verbiage in our classroom that will help to promote that. And of course, she talked about varying the structures in your classroom, the different ways of using Math Workshop, so that all of the learners in your classroom are fully engaged.
In March, we did a follow-up with the fourth grade. We revisited math mindsets from our summer work, and we provided tools and resources to encourage authentic conversations around mathematical topics. Lastly, we spent time working through geometry tasks to help teachers plan for their upcoming units. We explored new manipulatives and found new uses for those with which they were already familiar. And I think the teachers in the room can tell you that we got nothing but positive responses from them. That it was a great experience for them. It really gave them a lot of things to work with in class, and a lot of encouragement, and it just really helped them a great deal. This was another opportunity also to share A&E math tasks with the teachers. This has been and will continue to be an ongoing activity of Mrs. Nass's and mine to give all students the opportunity to engage in rich and interesting A&E like math activities, and to help teachers to feel confident in their abilities to deliver this material, and just as importantly, to see the importance and positive impact it has in our students when we do that.
Professional learning that Mr. Green and I were able to take part in this year was some professional literature and education book clubs. We were extremely fortunate to receive a tremendous amount of professional literature to support us in our own professional learning this year, and thus it was able to support our work with the teachers. The books that we received not only allowed the three of us to have book club conversations around different chapters and even just different quotes that we were pulling from it and having that type of conversation, but it also led some of our PLC and flex sessions. Some of the topics that we feel really strongly about, we were able to take some of the material and bring that to teachers that don't necessarily have the text. It also supported us in some of the one-on-one meetings that Mr. Green and I would have with some of the teachers. They would come to us with, a question or a concern about their math teaching, and off the cusp, we would generally be able to kind of help them and support them. And then what we would be able to do is find something in some of our professional literature that would support that. And that way they had some resources that they could use and fall back on. And then we were able to have kind of just a smaller book club, a smaller educational conversation, taking from some of the literature that we found. It also just supported our own learning. I know I speak for both of us when I say we've grown a lot this year as educators, and we've learned so much through our professional learning about math education that we've been able to disseminate to the teachers. In fact, one of the books that we received, we're hoping next year will serve as a book club with some of our 4th and 5th grade teachers, so that we can really work through some problem solving and go through that book, and we can have hopefully, twice a month, maybe have conversations around that.
We plan on attending coaching workshops in the next year. We also continue our relationship with math coaches from across New Jersey, whom we collaborate collaborate with periodically. Yesterday in this room, we actually met with them. And those are really interesting things because we get to see what other districts are doing in math and, compare them to what we're doing, and we're ahead. We plan to attend with more math conferences this year. Mrs. Nass, Ms. Pearson, and I we meet weekly to review what we've done and what we've experienced in the last week, and also to collaborate and plan for what we're going to do in the future.
Before we get into our video, I just want to say a few thank yous. I'd like to thank the board for the resources that have been purchased over the course of the year to support this work. As soon as we got the manipulatives in, they were in teachers' hands, and the next day we were in classrooms and saw them being used. It went a long way in supporting the work that we are doing, and we very, very much appreciate that. I want to thank our teacher resource specialists for math, Mr. Green and Mrs. Nass, as well as our teacher resource specialists for curriculum and instruction, Mrs. Kara Kleckner and Mrs. Marianne Carnival. Also, thank you to Dr. Adderhold, Mr. Smith, and Mr. Dalton in supporting us in this work. And also, thank you to our K-5 building principals, but specifically our 4th and 5th grade Millstone River and Village School building administration and my K-5 supervising counterparts. And also the biggest thank you goes to our 4th grade teachers in all of this work. We, like Mr. Smith said at the beginning of this, we could not have done it without you, and very much appreciate all of the work that you've done to make this year a success.
Throughout the year, we've used digital resources to capture the work that we've done with teachers and students to bring enriched math to all the 4th grade. Mrs. Kara Kleckner-Ray, one of our teacher resource specialists for curriculum and instruction, put together a great video. I think you're going to really like this, that we want to share and share with you to celebrate all the hard work that went into it. Throughout the video, you'll see our 4th grade students engaging in A&E type math activities.
I just wanted to say good evening, and I hope you enjoy the video.
I know that this year, more than any year before, my approach and my comfortability with teaching math has just grown immensely.
I actually feel more excited for math this year compared to all of my years before, because the way they teach has really changed compared to before, making math more fun and helping the students understand more.
Wait, you have that? No.
They've already flipped it.
Okay, we're flipped over.
There we go.
Yeah.
Wait. Looks good to me.
Tall, you can just get the segula.
That's yours.
There we go.
There we go. We got it. Got all the points.
Nice work, team.
Nice.
You have to
Math Workshop has positively impacted all of my students during this past year. Like in any classroom, I have students with a wide variety of ability levels. Math Workshop is the method that best reaches all of my students and leads to a positive, productive struggle.
Think about some of the things that I'm most proud of is the discourse between students, and not teacher to student, but student to student, and group to group. And it's those conversations that you really get an idea of what students are thinking and how willing they are to help others see the same thing.
What are you saying? So like up here there's 60 times? No. Like 11 to like the school room here. Okay, is that 60? Year 60. So what would be So we add these up and we can get the answer. And then we can see like all the way up here, it's all of it is 60. It adds up to 60. Why? Oh. Mistakes help me learn, because they do. Because if you actually work on what you did wrong, then you actually learn it better.
Students are starting to realize that it's okay to make a mistake and that some problems might take more than one class period to solve and come to a solution right.
I like the problem solving, and I like working with friends and combining our ideas to get the final answer. So there are like different ways of doing it, but the main thing is you're learning and fun way.
If the board members have any questions at this point?
I'm interested in knowing what the homework policy is for fourth grade math.
We currently do not have any policy on homework in the district. We've been working on that for the past 2 years, but there isn't currently a homework policy for the district at all.
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Green and Mrs. Nass. Okay, I know this year is the first year without fourth grade A&E. So for the current fourth grader, how many of those students can achieve the A&E level of formal fourth grade A&E?
I would say probably more than we would have had if we would have had an A&E class, because the testing that we had was really rigorous getting into the class. Okay. And we were always concerned that we were missing some kids along the way. And by bringing this into the classroom, we're seeing a lot more growth from a lot of kids. Some kids that may not have had A&E in the past, if they were in there, are probably growing into that level right now because of the work they're doing in the classroom. We're doing really phenomenal stuff in there, I have to tell you. And as you know, I put that stuff, I put the A&E program mostly as we knew for the last several years together, and brought all that material back into the fourth grade class. It's accessible to all the teachers. I go into the classrooms and I teach lessons, and there are model lessons for the teachers. And I work collaboratively behind the scenes, sometimes in the classroom with the teacher, and sometimes I just go in and observe, and I'm just amazed by the work that they're doing. It's really tremendous. Really is. It's worked out way better than I thought it was going to. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. By the way, many parents told me to say thank you, Mr. Green. Okay, thank you so much for the A&E program.
Well, thank you for that. My pleasure.
A comment and a quick question. The comment is it's a collective and also commending effort, I think, by the specialist, supervisor, and all the teachers, for post-grade teachers to work together and really spread out the A&E material, not only to the past 7.5% roughly, but based on your answer to Taylor's question, I don't know, I don't want to imagine a number, but 20 to 30%, we'll see, right? When the student get into the 6th grade and get to the A&E program, we will finally tell. So another quick comment is I know you're getting ready for the 5th grade the same grade moving on to the fifth grade, and all the teachers work at a summer program as well. So I comment on that as well. The quick question is, what areas you think, based on the first year experience, you can potentially improve for the next year student, and obviously for the fifth grade student as well? So.
Well, as far as like the fourth grade goes, the more comfortable, the more the teachers work with the material, the better they're going to get with it, the more comfortable they're going to get. You're going to see much better growth than what we've already seen. And we've seen phenomenal growth already. So I expect to see continued growth in that way, and we'll continue to work with the fourth grade teachers. This year we're going to focus rather heavily on the fifth grade, and it's going to be fun watching what happens there, because fifth grade is a huge leap at the A&E level material from what it was in fourth grade. So I have a lot of fun stuff planned for the fifth grade teachers this year.
And what's exciting too for fifth grade, moving into next year, is that they've seen the excitement and the buzz around Math Workshop with their fourth grade colleagues. They've seen, Mr. Green and I have done some PLC sessions with them as well, so we've been able to introduce a little bit to them and get them excited for it. So they're coming into Summer Institute feeling excited about learning this and jumping on board the way fourth grade was, and the way that fourth grade teachers have responded, and just, as Mr. Green said, they have blown us away with the type of math content they're delivering in their classrooms. And that has trickled down, to fifth grade, and fifth grade is aware of that and excited to be able to do that same kind of thing that their colleagues have done this past year.
The other thing is the fourth grade students this year who are going to be going into fifth grade have been working in workshop all year, so it's not going to be a huge training session for them in the beginning of the year to learn to do that. So they're going to be able to jump right in. We have to get the teachers ready to jump right into it too.
We've had the benefit of time this time around too, so it's like little things, like, in the beginning, we weren't necessarily, we were giving out tasks and then not giving out answer keys. And we realized early on, like, we needed to give teachers the task and the answer key before we had that discussion, so that they could prep ahead of time before coming together, rather than when we get in the PLC time, that's when we start working, but rather, when they had, when they could snag little bits of time throughout their day, that they could take the time to look at the problem and look at, a possible solution to something, or, they could take it and come to Mr. Green or Mrs. Nass and say, well, I was thinking about this way, so that we looked at things as very structured in terms of, in the beginning, that this is going to happen during this time. We realized very quickly that we take up every ounce of time or every second of time that we have, and that being able to do little things like that where it's little tweaks to things. And I mean, we have, and I said the benefit of time, like we started probably in December thinking about what this summer is going to look like, and what now September and October and November have to look like, and to support the work that the teachers, not only your fifth grade teachers, but also what's happening in fourth grade too, to continue the great work that's been happening.
I think it's wonderful that you're using all these manipulatives, and I'm sure the kids really enjoy that. My concern is about the students who would have been in A&E math in fourth grade this year. And at the very beginning, you said that the goal is to have all learners have access to rigorous high-level content. So I'm wondering two things. Are those kids who would have been in A&E math in fourth grade, are they having the rigorous program they would have had in A&E math? And how can you measure that and make sure that they are having a rigorous math course all year long?
Well, as I said, I have the experience in A&E math, in the A&E math program, so I've seen what kids do, and I know what we did in the program as it was. In the material that we give to the kids, first of all, accelerate and enriched math. The acceleration really should be driven by the enrichment. The enrichment creates the need for the acceleration. So it's not acceleration for acceleration's sake. It's more to get them to a point where they need to have that little higher level math, and we can work with them with that. The enrichment itself, what it does is it helps them to understand and develop a love for the beauty of math, make the connections that are necessary, help them to start to learn to think and develop their minds mathematically, as opposed to what they would do in a regular classroom where they'd sit down and they would have the teacher lecture to them, give them some worksheets, and have them sit down and do 30 of the same problem over again, make the same mistake over and over again until they learn not to make that mistake. What we're trying to do with them, and what I think we're succeeding from what I've seen, is we're getting the kids to start to think a lot more now, so that they're much more capable of working at higher level problems. The idea of the enriched problems, the rich tasks that we're giving them, we have multiple entry points and multiple exit points for the students. So the student comes in, if they, depending on where they are and how they're thinking and how they're developed at that particular moment in time, will determine how well they do with the various things. As far as getting an A&E type program, we've taken that and we basically have given the material to the kids and to the teachers in the classroom, and from what I've seen, it looks really good right now. I think you're going to see a lot more kids develop at a higher level of math through our program now than what they have before, and really the research that we've read says that that should be the case. So I'm going to ride right along with that. I think that's exactly what's going to happen.
What does the research say?
The research says that by doing richer tasks, higher level types of things, making the kids think more rather than doing math teaching the way it was done in the past, the way you and I were all taught math, it really is going to develop the kids thinking a lot better and going to make better math students out of them in the long run.
Yeah, I have one more question. Sure. Yeah. For differentiated education in one classroom, how many levels can you have in one class?
What do you mean by, like?
Yeah, I know right now the math, fourth grade math is taught in a differentiated education style. So students can have different level of the math understanding. Now, how do you differentiate those students?
Well,
right?
that goes back to using the different structures of workshop, and it depends on the day. Some of the rich tasks that we had, every child has an access point to that. So if you're doing a problem like the clay pots problem, that might be the only thing that you're doing in there that day, but because students have access to that at different levels, the way that they interact with that material is going to be different, and then the teacher will orchestrate a discussion around that to layer in where kids are still using the picture representation, to kids that are adding, to kids that are subtracting, to kids that jump right to the algorithm. And that's one way to look at something as a whole class. The other way to do it is through stations and centers. Like you saw in the video during Mrs. Harrington's visit, in Mr. Malakadis' room, there were, I think, 3 or 4 different activities happening in that class at the same time. And when the structures have been put in place where kids understand the routines, kids understand that when I finish, I'm going to go do this. Or if I have a question and my teacher's working with somebody else, what do I do? When all of those questions are answered, and that's part of building the structures in the beginning of the year, that allows the teacher opportunity throughout the class while kids are working at different stations to work with kids that are at different levels. It depends on the topic. You might have kids that you can put into 3 different groups. Other times you might have a range that you're not quite sure what to do with, and that's when you come to us and they work with the classroom teacher to figure out how to make that learning meaningful for the kids. So it doesn't look the same every day.
Okay. Thank you.
And there are a lot of situations where either one of us or the teacher will determine the types of tasks or the types of content that student is going to be working with, or that partnership or that small group is going to be working with for that day. There's a lot of situations where they would determine that. But what we're finding a lot going into the math classrooms too is that the kids are making those determinations. So, for example, we'll give a whole class task. One class will be working on one rich task together. And you'll start to see students go over and say, well, what if I thought about it this way? Or, we'll be doing a 3-act math, and it will be, it will be about measurement, and the task will be to determine how many cases of soda are stacked up. And then they'll say, well, let me think about it this way. If they're all different cases of soda, and they all have different amounts of sugar in them, and this one has this many grams of sugar, and this one has this many grams of sugar. What if I determined how many grams of sugar are in the entire display? And the kids are coming up with these things completely on their own, and the teachers are just saying, well, run with it, go with that, and that will be your task for tomorrow. And then they're so engaged because they came up with the problem. They came up with the idea to go with that, and that's really amazing to see when the kids are coming up with rich tasks, because we're doing it so often that it's coming to them very naturally, and to me, that's been one of my favorite things to see.
And that's really great that goes on. I have to tell you that when I was teaching regular 5th grade math way back when I first started out, I used to allow the kids to do that. If somebody came up with a question or an idea in class, we would run with it in class. And I had one of my students, a really bright kid, came back and I ran into him in middle school. I was over there for some reason, and he said to me, Mr. Green, he says, you know how you used to, when something came up in class and we were able to, like, you know, we had a different idea and we wanted to go in a certain direction, you would say, let's go with that, and we'd go and we'd explore it and think about it and do things. He says, I can't do that in middle school now. I'm stuck with doing the same, you know, whatever the teacher has in mind, that's what we have to do. They learn so much more from doing that. That's really what inquiry is all about. It's what people do. You know yourself, when you're learning things, that's how you learn things. You think out of the box, you work on something, you struggle with it, you fail a little bit, and you learn a lot more from doing that. So that's exactly right.
You think, well, what if I thought about it this way? What if I thought about it this way? And then your partner gives you an idea, and it's really nice to see the kids making their own tasks.
Thank you.
I have a question. In one particular classroom, how many different levels are these kids at? Is it like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or what? How many different groups does the teacher have to work with?
It depends on the topic. I mean, that all comes out of pre-assessment data. It comes out of just observation, and the teacher makes that determination. To say that it's 2, say it's 5, you can't just make a generalization about how many levels are in a classroom. I mean, we worked this year to use the Gentry model for placing students in a broader sense. But that, again, when you start looking at little pieces of, you know, where the kids are in their understanding of fractions versus their understanding of geometry, could make your classroom look completely differently, and the approach that you take could be different. So to say that there's, you know, what the range is, it depends on the class, depends on the day, it depends on, you know, if you're teaching math in the morning one day and something gets moved and there's something else in the middle. It all depends.
I'm sorry, I do not believe that. I'm sorry.
It depends on the light bulbs going off in the classroom, too. You know, kids, when they're in class and something happens and all of a sudden they grasp something, that changes that whole dynamic of, you know, if you wanted to call them levels in the classroom. Some kids have started out here and all of a sudden something clicks. And now they're no longer here, they're here. That does happen in the classroom. I can tell you that really does happen. And it happens for us, too, when we're in a situation where we don't understand something and all of a sudden the piece comes together. Now we're on a different level ourselves. So in a classroom, that can be in flux during the class.
We're also trying to think about, just outside of math content, just looking at different mathematical strengths that the kids are having. And that's obviously, you know, definitely as the person said. So even, you know, thinking about our math practice standards, thinking about kids that, you know, are able to justify their thinking really, really well. You know, you have a clump of those kids. You're going to have kids who are using a pictorial representation quite well. You have a chunk of those kids. So we're using those math practice standards to find additional strengths in kids outside of just this student is strong in fractions, or this student is strong in place value, or this student is strong in division. So we're trying to think outside of content too, and trying to pull out those strengths in kids as well.
Just one last closing comment from my side. Again, I want to compliment the teachers for being open-minded. You know, open mindset. We're talking about growth mindset because you have been teaching for so many years. Probably it's more or less the same material, and now jumping into something different. So I really appreciate that collective effort again. And building on top of it, we all know that our children will face a bigger challenge and task than our generation because a lot of things can be automated, and they need to have a deeper level of understanding to be able to go to the next level, you know, building on top of the human history evolution. So to that extent, I think human brain are so powerful and yet so much potential. So I want to just make a request to say, don't keep it fixed, right? I would say push it forward. As long as we can keep the students passionate and love the math and keep it fun, don't stop pushing the acceleration and enrichment through the years.
We tell the kids to do this, and I'm doing it.
Exactly. So that would be my closing comment. But thank you again for the collective effort. Thank you.
I want to thank you all for the presentation, for the work the teachers do. Next, Dr. Adelholt is going to be introducing the strategic plan.
Well, good evening, everyone. And before we start with the strategic plan, let me also extend my thanks to Ms. Nass and Mr. Green, Ms. Pearson, all of our teachers, our administrators that are here in the audience for the presentation. Thank you for your work, your dedication, and making that this year's fourth grade math transition a success. And we thank you for all your hard work and your efforts. Tonight, it's my pleasure to stand before you and present a first public discussion regarding the strategic plan, regarding the action plans. Back on the, I believe it was the January 24th board meeting, the Board of Education passed the new mission and strategic goals for the district. And then from that work, 3 identified goals were adopted that evening. The goals were then charged to 3 subcommittees. So joining me this evening, and they'll play much more of an active part in the presentation, are Penny Fisher, the Supervisor of Language Arts K-5, Melissa Levine, the Assistant Principal at High School North. They are the co-chairs for goal number 1. Then we have Janet Bowes, Principal of Town Center, and Carl Cooper, K-12 Supervisor of Social Studies, the co-chairs for Goal 2. And then Mr. Lee McDonald, the Director of Guidance, and Mr. Lamont Thomas, Principal of Grover Middle School, co-chairs for Goal 3. So they will be speaking through the work of the strategic goals. What I'd like to just spend a couple moments on is just a framing of some of the work. So if we go back January 24th, Board adopted the goals. We then had some work to do with respect to the creation of committees, the work with our strategic planner, Judy Wilson, to both take the work and the feedback from the board about process, around framework, around the actual template to be used, and the information to collect. So between January 24th and the end of February, that work took place. End of February, we reached out to 30 members of the school community and or external experts and invited them to participate on one of the 3 goal teams. Starting in really early March, we met as a collective group in 3 different sessions with Judy for the launch of the action plan teams, and then ultimately the transition to the work of the action plan teams. So when those teams came together, they had to review the goal and try to ask themselves, what did they just hand us, and what have we now been charged with? And they had to review the goals and make sense of the goals from the lens that they were now handed. They had to ask questions like, what are our current practices? How do we envision the identified goal impacting the district's direction? How do we then move that forward? How do we move the work of the district forward? There was a period of research and looking at best practices and research practices. And then they had to work to complete the template in a time period which at first they would have thought I was joking when I told them by May they would come to the committee meetings on May 16th and speak to the board in sessions, essentially giving them 2.5 months, an aggressive but a realistic time period, and some real dedication on the parts of many members of our school district to get this work done. Through the process, though, there was opportunity to look at, to bring the co-chairs together on several occasions, because in conversations they had questions, we had questions about the work, and some themes started to emerge. And 3 primary themes emerged across, which was curriculum instruction assessment, professional development, and community engagement. Now, I would say that as you see the frameworks this evening, it's important to keep in mind a couple understandings. One is that we have 3 goals with 3 different starting places. So we want to make sure to honor the work, not assuming that each goal starts from the same place, but the idea is as we move, and each goal is a little bit different in depth and breadth of impact. So if we move them all at the same pace, the same way, with the same structures, we could swamp the boat, so to speak. So we have to be mindful of the organization and making sure that we're respectful to the organization. There's overlap within the committees, and again, some of that overlap is in professional development. So we have district structures like a district, the DEAC committee. It's a committee of educators that looks at professional development within the district in totality. Well, we have that existing structure. Professional development is now being identified in 3 different goals. So then how do we take a look at our district initiatives with the DEAC committee, as well as now absorbing 3 new committees' recommendations for work from the district, and then how to make sense of how that works as a district. So there's a recognition that there's overlap and there's a lot of work to do, literally strategic work to do around the implementation of an adopted strategic action plan. Then there was a strong desire that emerged within all 3 committees to assess and get a better sense of what we're actually doing in some of our current practices, because there's pockets of brilliance and there's sometimes questions about the consistency across the district on certain aspects of practice. So within global citizenship, or the goal number 2, the reality is there's strong evidence in many classrooms of how that work's being done, and sometimes it's in pockets and elements of parts of buildings or in parts of grade levels or in certain departments. So then how do we then expand some of the great work that's being done in totality across the district or across departments or across grade levels? So there was a realization that we're not in a position to come out with an aggressive 5-year plan today, but that we needed to look at realizations to craft strategies and activities that would lay a foundation over the next 18 to 24 months. And then by laying that foundation, that we would then be able to move work forward for the subsequent 2 to 5 years. So with the teams, while there are some goals that will, aspects of the goals through the strategies or the action plans that will take 5 years, there's others that will be developed over time. And we strongly recommend that this is a living document, that we review it and expand upon this as we move forward, and that we come back in board presentations in the future to report back out on the progress of the goals and make recommendations for next steps. We also felt strongly that we had to give voice to other staff members that were not on these committees, as well as members of our community. Community being our parents, our greater community, and our students. And so that we felt that sometimes we do need to set up additional committees for some of the work. Now, our strategic planner cautioned us not to just create an action plan of committees. But when we're talking about goals coming from different starting places, we did feel it was disingenuous not to involve others in the process, and that if we just came out and said, this is it, this is what we're doing, versus getting other voice. So in some of the action plans, you will see formations of other committees so that we do involve others from their collective community and bring them to the table. Now, there was also a strong recommendation or feeling that we could recommend something, but we're also then have to obligate dollars to make some of these happen. So that because the goals and the action plans are going to drive a financial commitment from the district and ultimately a determination from this board, there was a strong sense that we needed to make sure that we did this in a respectful way, that the reality of the first 12 months is this budget is already set for the 17-18 school year. And it's not like we just have dollars sitting around in the budget to enact a new social and emotional curriculum at the K-5, K-8, 9, 12, K-12 level. That costs a tremendous amount of money in professional development. So something that comes in an action plan would have to then be built and vetted through the budgetary processing through committee work of the Board of Education to ultimately talk about implementation in a future year. The last is that this last bullet is this idea that respecting our staff. There are a lot of initiatives out there. There's a lot of responsibilities. Obviously, you just heard that 5th grade is going to have an experience of moving forward with the math workshop model and our fourth grade teachers are going to obviously continue that work and continue their development. But at the same time, they also have to work in the implementation of the next gen science standards next year. And so there's another added change, and that's driven through a state change. So if we were to implement everything in this action plan next year, it would be completely overwhelming. So there's a reality that we're facing, that we have to move very strategic and methodically about how we implement aspects of the strategic plan so we don't overwhelm the organization. And if we overwhelm the organization at any point, we risk not maintaining excellence. And so an example I'll give is all 3 action plans call for some kind of tie to a framework. Goal 1 is going to be through the Danielson framework, our evaluation framework on our teaching practices. Goal 2 talks about bringing in a global citizenship framework, and Goal 3 talks about creating a framework around social emotional learning. There's an opportunity to take those 3 frameworks, marry those frameworks, create a crosswalk documentation, and look for commonalities across them. So we help translate the documents into impact in classrooms. An example would be empathy, for instance. Empathy crosses in all 3 frameworks. Now, we haven't identified either the social emotional or the global citizens frameworks, but in any framework in those 2 topics, empathy exists. What also exists in our evaluation framework. So the question is, how do we help create a document that shows that there's commonality across these documents to help translate that work and make the work meaningful in the classroom? But then again, you have to then look at, it's the review of frameworks, potentially the creation of a framework if we're not liking what we find out there from other organizations, and then ultimately creating a crosswalk document. That could be a 12 to 18-month process when you start laying that kind of work out there. So while that sounds, oh, we pick 3 frameworks, adopt them, and go, to actually make that happen in a way that respects the staff, training to the staff, and support to the community in a respectful process, you're talking, again, 12 to 18 months, assuming that nothing else changes that distracts that work, like maybe a Howard Hughes Corporation or something like that. So the reality is that there's a lot happening in the organization. We want to be mindful in our approach. But tonight I'm very excited. I can't tell you the amount of time that these co-chairs have spent. Clearly they spent a lot of time, as it's almost 10 to 9 and they're just about to start the presentation. They've given a lot of time above and beyond to make sure that this work is communicated and articulated in a way in which has a meaningful impact to our school community. The board has had the opportunity to hear this work just a week ago. We have taken your review and your feedback. The committees will speak to some of the changes that have been made based on that feedback. So I am going to transition this over to Melissa Levine and Penny Fisher with goal number 1. And it's my pleasure to have them present the work to you. So thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Before we begin, and I think I speak for our co-chair colleagues, I just want to be very clear that we stand very much on the shoulders of the work of the members of our committees who have done just heroic work and have put in, again, as Dr. Adderhold said, countless hours, and we've had some very lively conversations that have led us to this place. So we're very grateful. We see some members of our committees in the audience tonight, and so I just want to thank them very, very much. So Melissa and I are going to kind of walk you through goal number 1, and the way we're going to approach the next 6 slides are, we're going to kind of tell you what the focus was that through which we approached each goal. We'll touch upon any language that is in there that might not be easily accessible to people who don't live in our world of public education. And then we will note, especially for the board members, revisions that were made based on your feedback. We actually did a lot of work on the goal thanks to your feedback from last week. Okay? So our first strategy is about identifying and implementing tools and structures that provide multiple entry points. And our focus here really was incredibly beautifully captured by Ms. Pearson and Mr. Grant and Mrs. Nass. This really is about shifting mindsets on the parts of teachers and allowing them to truly understand and believe and have the tools that they need to allow all students to be successful, to allow all students to be able to access the content and the learning that needs to happen for them. And that's what we mean by multiple entry points. It's really another way of saying differentiation, so that every student has the ability to learn to his or her full potential. The 3 activities associated with this strategy focus on ways that we teach, ways to assess the impact of that teaching by using data, and ways in which to provide resources to teachers to support the shift from the way most of us were trained as teachers, which is what we call deficit thinking. In other words, find what's wrong with the kid and fix it, to growth mindset, which, as Melissa and her colleagues spoke about, believes that every child is capable. A couple of the educational terms that you'll see up here, we just wanted to kind of point out real quickly. Direct instruction, when you see that, think teacher talk. Students are sitting in a chair, teacher is standing and talking. Inquiry-based instruction, again, Melissa and her, I thought they did our whole presentation for us. Melissa and her colleagues spoke about that. The best example that we can give you has to do probably with science labs, where there's a question and we go out and do experiments and engage in inquiry and discover. And then some of the changes that we made, we took feedback into your feedback into account, and you'll see in strategy 1A, we chose to focus on varied instructional models. Strategy 1B, we rewrote the strategy. From every committee. We got feedback that it was not as clear as we wanted it to be, so we shifted it to focus more on using data to inform instruction. And in strategy 1C, we were asked to better define personalized and integrated, so we tried to kind of make that clearer in terms of personalized for each student and integrated across content areas.
So for strategy 2, the goal is to identify and implement professional development initiatives to support all staff as they work with each student. Our focus here really was to be able to provide instruction and professional development, going beyond just our typical faculty and really looking at all staff and being able to include them to be more inclusive, since they too work with students at all levels. So the activities for this strategy are focused on exactly what I just said, supporting all students who interact with the adults, inviting teachers to learn from one another, so think instructional rounds, and I know that the members of the board are familiar with that. We want to do more of that with our teachers as well, and to continue to support teachers in focusing on work from student strength to planning instruction. Peer visitation is, again, similar to instructional rounds, where we have peers visiting each other's classrooms for the specific purpose of learning to observe strong examples of small group instruction, questioning techniques, inquiry-based learning, and others. Articulation, again, in terms of language, we're talking about the opportunity for teachers to be able to come together and reflect on their work, and to also articulate from one grade level to the next. So again, revisions made on your feedback. Strategy 2A, we changed the language from saying continuing to expanding. 2B, we changed that as well. We originally had explore. We changed that to establish structures for, and added some other language there as well. For strategy 3, identify and implement community outreach initiatives to support deeper understanding of instructional practices. Our goal and our focus here was really, as it's stated, it's to build relationships with all the members of our community. We, fortunately, didn't have to make a lot of changes here, so that was really nice. One revision that we did make is on strategy 3C. We talked more about just sharing presentations. Oh, sorry, go one more. Thank you. Other revisions that we made in the process, again, based on your feedback, we reduced the number of the people that are responsible under each strategy and activity. We adjusted our timelines to make them more specific where we could, and we expanded our research base, which is included in your newest packet. And that's it for us.
Could I ask a question? Could you explain what articulation is?
So articulation is, when you think of articulation in terms of a bone, it's something joining together. So we're looking at it that way too. It might be that we have grade level 5 to 6 because they go into a different building where there's articulation between teachers or guidance counselors to be able to coordinate the educational process between the two. It could be articulation even within grade levels.
It's time for people to talk and share
Merge.
ideas and merge, bring together ideas and talk.
No, I'm going to say thank you.
Thank you. Carl Cooper and Janet Bowes will now share with you their work on Goal 2.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. My name is Carl Cooper. I am the Social Studies Supervisor for the district. Our goal number 2 is somewhat daunting. We are tasked to develop an action plan that would allow our students to be better engaged, better informed with the world, to feel a sense of empowerment to take action, and to make the world a more just and peaceful place. What a task. We have a wonderful group of team members that worked on this project.
So we had a terrific team, and working along on our Goal 2, along with Louisa and Martin from this side of the room, we had several WWP educators representing the elementary, middle, and high school levels. In addition to their expertise, we're able to tap into the knowledge of university-level educators who are currently active in the fields of global citizenship and service learning education. Our first strategy is developing a framework, and you've heard that several times, but I just want to explain the framework can be thought of like an organized structure. The structure can be used as a guide for us in defining the expected knowledge and skills that students should develop at certain points throughout their education. The tool will be utilized to help examine current practices and refine those practices in order to enhance the development of global citizenship in our students. One of our activities for this framework is to have it developed by a strategic planning action committee, which Dr. Adderhold had mentioned previously. Currently, there are many existing frameworks related to global citizenship, including 2 well-known ones, one from Oxfam and one from Asia Society. These can be used as resources for us when our committee works to develop the framework for WWP. When this is completed, professional development will be provided to the staff, surveys will be conducted of our current practices, and a report will be created highlighting our district's areas of strengths and areas where we need some more support toward meeting this objective. Our second strategy is professional development for administration and teachers, and I think this has been covered so far, but for our goal, we're going to have assess our current PD opportunities and create additional opportunities to address the staff's beliefs and attitudes regarding global citizenship and provide engaging instructional practices that will foster growth along a path of global citizenship skills. Carl will share some additional activities for this strategy.
So as we continued with our work, we realized that we wanted to set high-minded goals for the group, but we needed to be careful about, Dave used the word swamping the organization. We have almost 10,000 students, 1,000 employees, and it's quite frankly, global citizenship could be an all-encompassing experience. And so what we realized that we needed to do was to develop our capacity as an organization with a common vision and with specific steps that would have a significant impact in the immediate term. One of the things that we can do is to be deliberate about our opportunities for teachers for professional development. We can promote study abroad experiences for our teachers. wonderful way to have an enriching experience that they can bring back to the classroom. And we do have a number of teachers every year that do study abroad, and then they do come back and share their work, share their experiences, but we can be more deliberate about the experience. One of the recommendations that we're making as part of our actions in the strategic planning is to have our Director of Human Resources develop and expand upon our efforts to hire and recruit a more diverse faculty and staff. Now, we are trying to develop a common vision. We are trying to develop all of our members of the organization with their understanding of that common vision, but there are practical steps that we can take in the short term. We did hear from a board committee last week that with this particular strategy, we needed to bring some overarching structure to our 9 separate activities. And so we are proposing 2 activities that will develop our students, that will say to the community, this is important. We value global citizenship. So our very first achievable in the near term action would be to develop a partnership with a local college or university, and with that partnership, develop a criteria that we would award a global citizenship certificate on the graduation certificate. This is a program that already exists in Highland Park. The Highland Park School District has a partnership with Rutgers University, and in their program of studies, it clearly spells out various activities, courses, and as students do meet the requirements and accrue for their system a number of points, they are then granted a seal on the high school diploma. We can do that. A second communication to our community that this is important to us is to adopt the New Jersey Department of Education's Seal of Biliteracy. They already have all of the criteria. If a student can demonstrate competency in English and a second language, the Department of Education will provide them with an additional endorsement seal on their high school graduation diploma, certifying them as being biliterate. We already have all of the tests set up. We know the criteria. We can move forward starting this year. And so for implementation next school year. We also thought that we should improve the program that would help us to help students to communicate in a global society. So these are specific actions that we can take to improve our world language program. First, we should assess student world language proficiency levels. The World Language Supervisor will develop a program to sample students at various points, and we'll be able to then assess our students' ability and really do an assessment of our program. Our teacher resource specialists for technology will develop opportunities for teachers to better connect our students to communities, not only within West Windsor, our region, perhaps in the nation and the world. Very doable. We can start that this year. And finally, we are making the recommendation that the Board of Education consider the continued exploration and implementation of a dual language program beginning in kindergarten. That will take some time, but it takes a great deal of early work for us to do to make a program like that successful. So we have some other recommendations specific to curriculum instruction. First of all, we should develop, and this is very easy for us to do, a global citizen competency rubric. We have a number of rubrics for 21st century competencies. We already have an effective communicator rubric. We have a information literate researcher rubric. We've developed those 7 or 8 years ago. The one 21st century competency that we don't have a WWP rubric to inform our instruction, to inform our assessment, is global citizen. And so we're going to recommend that we complete the work that was begun many years ago in the district. Very easy, logical step that will actually be something we can work with teachers right away. We're going to recommend that in the 5th grade, this school year coming up, we would design and pilot a global citizenship experience. It's a project that is similar to the Global Challenge in 8th grade, but there's an important caveat to that. We are not ready to go all into that. We have a lot going on in our school, our 5th grade in particular, and so what we are suggesting is that it's a pilot. We find 1 or 2 teachers at each of our 5th grade buildings, and we pilot it next year. We can absolutely do that. We have people on our committee who are really excited about doing this work with their 5th grade students. We're also recommending that we would take an interdisciplinary project that currently exists at Community Middle School, our 7th grade LA Social Studies interdisciplinary documentary project, and bring it over to Grover as well. The board did see student presentations for this project last month, I believe. Really successful project, and we just need to take this one outstanding success and move it to both buildings. Mr. Thomas, the principal of the building, has already committed the financial resources to make sure that we can do it. And also, we are recommending that we take an inventory of all of our service learning opportunities. We already have a community service committee, K through 12, throughout the district, and we have started this work. We do need to take an inventory of everything we could be doing, that we are doing, excuse me. Now, our 4th strategy is something that is similar to what you'll see throughout the other 2 goals, and that is to develop community partnerships. First of all, we need to take an inventory of all of our community resources. We have teachers that habitually do ask parents at back to school night, what can you do to support us? What can you do that would really help our students? Are you an expert at a particular topic? We have students, teachers who are doing that. We need to do that across the district, K through 12. We need to take an inventory of what the strengths of our community and the local area around us. We need to develop our connections and strengthen them with local colleges and universities to do this important work. Finally, we are recommending that we establish a global citizen committee that Dave would put into our work. We thank you for your time, and goal number 3, Lee McDonald, Mr. Thomas, come on up, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Questions?
I have a question. When you're talking about service, doing a survey of what service things are happening now, do you mean for students, what students are doing?
True. So we have, the question was for students, or what students are doing. We're looking for the opportunities that we're providing our students. And so we have had a month of service within this community. We are going to try to take a look at what are the different experiences that we are giving over the course of the year. Can we bring some coherence to our experience so that we can make it more organized, we can be more deliberate, we can bring together more of our institutional resources to support this work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Okay, good evening. First, I want to just thank the board once again for having us, and I want to thank members of our committee for the hard work. As Dave has said, it's been a lot of hours and time commitment to go over and go through some of the goals. Lee and I are here to present to you Goal 3, which basically is for us to recognize all of the needs of our students, the balance that they need, the social, emotional, academic needs of our students in reference to the whole child, both instructional, the healthy and safety and well-being as well. So the committee consists of administrators, staff members, school nurses at all levels. So K through 12 was represented within the committee, and just having that group come together, we realized that there's various perspective, and as they hinted at, multiple things happening within the district that we as a committee were unaware of. And so part of the goal for us was really for us to establish district norms around SEL, social emotional learning for our students, because we were all on different pages. We are still currently on all different pages. So as we look at the work for the next 18 to 24 months, we really need to first figure out a way in which that all schools are on the same page versus we're having these pockets of excellence. And through that, of course, we've done, as has been hinted at, is through PD for our staff and getting our staff members on the same page. So Goal 3, our activities to get to it, create part of the goal that we said is that we wanted to really create a district-wide SEL committee, meaning that there's a team at the district level, and their task and what they would be charged to do was to really adopt a strategic plan, create a vision for the district, and adopt standards that will help support that vision. But with that, because we have these pockets of excellence within the 10 buildings, we also wanted to create a school-wide leadership team in reference to SEL. And there will be a member from each of the teams at the school level who will be represented at the district level. So that, again, that we will be able to have conversations as to what's happening in one building is happening in all of our buildings. So what's good for one set of students is good for all. And the task at the school level will really to be for the staff to do is self-assessment. What are we doing around SEL in our building? What are some goals that we have? And based off of the assessments, what PD do our staff need? In reference to SEL structures and platforms, I know that may be a question, what do you mean by that? Part of that would be during the guidance meetings. Are we looking through this in our conversation around kids through SEL? If there's a discipline problem with a child, are we looking at it through the SEL platform and structure? So those are some things that we began to shift the mindset of our staff members. Part of the struggle definitely is trying to get staff all on board with SEL and get them to understand what's the concept as we begin to roll these pieces out. The last piece, and I'm going to turn it over, is establish district and school SEL norms. Again, improving our staff readiness. This is some of the pieces of feedback that we received from the board is that we may have staff members who may need to have their own space. We need to make sure that we take care of their LCL in order for them to take care of our kids. So being mindful of that as school leaders and as board members, what do we need to do in order to get our staff members their own SEL? Part of the goal was also create a space for our kids to be able to, if need be, a safe space, whether that's in the guidance counselor's office or a physical space within the building to meditate, to relax, to get them on board. And lastly, of course, to evaluate our process. Is it a reduction in whatever the goal states? So in order for us to say, okay, what's the evaluation to, we need to first establish the goal, and that's going to be done through the district and the school level. So if it's to reduce distractions in class, whether it's to reduce suspension rates, whether it's to reduce conflicts amongst kids. So once that goal is established, you'll then be able to assess it. Lee?
Okay, shifting gears, first I want to thank the Board of Education. I want to thank Dr. Adderholt for giving me the opportunity to present and certainly serve in this capacity. It has been a significant challenge, which my colleagues will attest to, but something that I think we've risen to the occasion to provide a pretty comprehensive plan. Speaking around Strategy 2, developing and integrating SEL instructional practices in curriculum, classrooms, and whatnot, this is a tall order in a content-driven world, if you will, but certainly something that can be done. If you build upon the idea of whole child, every child education that's been a part of our mission statement for a number of years, you look at that and say, how do we get a more global understanding of the academics integrating with the social emotional learning, and understanding that these are not competing interests per se, but these are things that without one, the other one becomes very difficult to do. So with that said, our activities under Strategy 2, looking at implementing teaching practices that promote social emotional learning. So this is one of the feedback, pieces of feedback that we received from the board last week was, what are some low-hanging fruit type of things that are going on currently in the district? And we have several good things that are happening across the district, not always necessarily consistently, but we have some things when you talk about morning meetings. For the first time in the K-5 elementary level, we actually have a built-in block of time for students every day for 15 minutes to have that opportunity for teachers to implement a morning meeting. That's a huge step when you think about providing time first thing in the morning. Students walk into a class, they're not just unpacking their books per se, they're unpacking whatever happened over the weekend, good or bad. So giving teachers an opportunity to kind of build those connections in the classroom. Then you think about mindfulness. Mindfulness is a movement that's happening both in K-12 education and corporate world, all over the place, and giving teachers not only the permission but the tools to take a moment in their classroom and allow students to understand that it's okay to take a moment, think about what you're doing, not be distracted by whatever it is you brought in with you, be ready to, and focused to learn. Then looking at the Danielson framework. Certainly we've been using the Danielson framework for a number of years throughout the district when in terms of our collaboration with teachers and looking at the classroom environment. But we want, how do we take that a step further, beyond just the respect and rapport component, beyond the classroom engagement piece? Do we start looking at how do we address behaviors? How do we ultimately look at physical spaces? Those are other components of the Danielson Framework Domain 2 that we're already having those conversations. How do we continue and expand upon those conversations? Leveraging existing and developing additional freestanding social emotional lessons. We have a comprehensive school counseling program. We have a curriculum that's in place, albeit a lot of times these are freestanding lessons. Counselor pushes into the classroom, delivers a lesson around conflict resolution, for example. How do we take those resources and embed them within the classroom to a further extent? We have very good resources. How do we share that throughout the district? Our health and phys ed education. We have a phenomenal group of teachers that work very hard around wellness and the idea of healthy decision making. There's a great resources for our teachers across all content areas, so how do we leverage that as well? Next, activities. When we talk about research and creating specific SEL curriculum, this becomes a little bit more of a difficult task in terms of embedding SEL into classroom curriculums. But it can be done. I mean, you've seen the presentation tonight around the math workshop. That's a perfect example of a shift in instructional practices that now is allowing students to work together collaboratively, be further engaged, be able to problem solve together, be able to work together in teams, communicate. All of those are SEL skills that are embedded now, albeit within a math curriculum. So that's a perfect example. Could be things like Socratic circles, allowing students to kind of engage in conversations around bigger philosophical questions. It could be something like the global challenge that's happening as a little bit more comprehensive at the middle school level. These are all perfect examples. So you have those types of curricular practices that you can embed in structures, but how do we now, expand upon that across the district? Looking at the providing district-wide SEL enrichment activities. Again, this is something that there's plenty of research. One of the things that the team did was had the opportunity to do a lot of research across other districts across the country. We consulted with Dr. Elias from Rutgers University, who runs the Social Emotional Learning Lab. He provided a number of resources for us, so there are resources out there. This could be a simple activity. You have a turn and talk with faculty members. You ask them to read an article about how social emotional learning supports student learning. So it could be something as simple as that in terms of providing enrichment activities for staff and then even for students around that. Maintaining consistent and ongoing opportunities for students and faculty to practice SEL skills. We have a number of examples currently in the district. At the high school level, for example, we have a day of dialogue activity and program through Campaign Connect, which is around the Center for Supportive Schools. That's an example where we have faculty and students collaborating around real-world issues. Again, they're working on their social-emotional skill set during those opportunities. How do we expand upon those? Exploring potential SEL assessments, that's another piece. There's a lot of research that's being done right now. There's a lot of forward-thinking districts out there that are starting to develop pieces around how do you assess students' SEL skills, how do you provide that appropriate feedback, and also how do you assess where we are as a district in terms of moving forward with SEL.
And the last goal, which has been a constant theme, is working with the community. None of the work that we do at the school level, none of the goals, none of the pieces that you saw today with the students could be done without the community members. So we have to get not just buy-in, but really get the community to understand the concept of SEL. So that it's just not part of the DNA of the school, but it's really part of the DNA of the community. And so in order for us to really do that, part of the strategy was to establish two things: a communication plan, just so that we communicate with the community about what's going on, because sometimes we're doing great things, but we do a poor job of publicizing that. So that's part of what we would like to do. And that could be done with, of course, the website, newsletters, and during our community forums, just to let parents know this is what's going on around SEL. And the last piece is really to create a community, last piece on that is second piece on that is create a community-based team, so that we can expand it. So we have folks with different lenses looking at it as this SEL, and just to broaden our piece. If you come to the table and say, well, this is what I know going on in the community, some things we may not know, or to get resources, whether it's medical doctors, folks in the professional field that can help us really push the SEL. So we do need the community, and so that's a big piece that you have seen throughout the other two goals. That's a big piece for our goal as we begin to really push out these initiatives. We do need buy-in from the community on these items.
So another piece of feedback that we received from the board was just wanting to know what are some potential topics in areas that, as we expand with this conversation into the community, what are some things that we could explore, and what are some things that we could present? Certainly there's people out there that don't even know what SEL means, don't necessarily recognize, what does it mean to self-regulate your emotions? What does it mean to communicate collaboratively? What does it mean to recognize your feelings? All of those things. So that's could be a step one in all of this. Looking at mindfulness, I mentioned a moment ago, that's a movement in itself that is becoming very popular across all sectors. Mental health. Mental health, we're already doing a lot of work in the district around mental health awareness. That's still not recognized by some people. Some people, cancer is different than mental illness, and that's really not the case. They're the same thing. They're both diseases that people have to deal with. So not everybody necessarily sees it that way, but that's a potential conversation to be had. Brain science. Certainly there's a lot of research that's been done in recent years around how the brain develops, how the adolescent handles certain situations, how they cope with things, how does that impact their social emotional learning, how's their ability to learn in the classroom. So these are pieces that, another great topic that I think would be very well received. College and career readiness. I think it goes without saying that if you don't have a certain skill set, you can't get along with colleagues, you can't communicate collaboratively, you can't work with other people, you're going to have a hard time both in college and the real world. So that's something that certainly ties into social emotional learning. We also looked at identifying specific speakers, what type of speakers. We're fortunate enough to be in an area where we have a lot of resources, not only in the state but across the Northeast corridor. People in higher ed, people in mental health professions, healthcare professions and whatnot. Community leaders within our very own community. We have high-level, engaging resources that could be a huge asset to the district. And we're already doing some of these things. Again, this would just be part of a broader-based community engagement plan and communication plan. Leveraging things such as Parent University, looking at our student groups that we have. I mentioned some of the other groups that we're currently running Our parent university, our PTSAs, do a tremendous job bringing in speakers. How do we leverage that audience in terms of engaging our parents and our broader community? And then looking at various community events. The Innovation Fair this past weekend was a great example of a community event. If you give me long enough, I'll probably find a way to tie social emotional learning into that as well. But, it's something that we have these opportunities out there. We need to leverage them and make sure that people understand what this means. So, without further ado, I'll open it up to questions.
I have a question. Where would, in this plan you have, where would things like yoga, breathing exercises, meditation, where would those be taught to students? Is that in number 2, where you're putting it into the guidance and health curriculum?
Not necessarily within. Those are pieces that are embedded. If you look at some of our health classrooms, we have extracurricular clubs around. We have yoga clubs that exist in the district. But those are all those are great topics to be discussed. We've talked about them in our group. There's another litany of things that we could list in this plan. These were some of the more broader-based things, but certainly those are right there in terms of things that we could do and opportunities we could provide for mindfulness and for stress reduction, social emotional learning.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to thank everybody because I know how much work it was, because I was on I was on goal 1 with Penny and Melissa, and I see Peter back there. We spent a great deal of time, and I know that all the other groups did as well. And we had some very engaging conversations and tough, difficult conversations about where this district is right now and where we would like it to be. And I want to thank everybody for their time. Thanks.
Yes, thank you all. Okay, that brings us to committee reports. Right? First up, sorry.
So I apologize for interrupting. I noticed during the presentations that we just wanted to make a note with respect to the executive session agenda, that there were some changes. For number 1, the board did not discuss personnel matters, discussed the student discipline matter. The board did not discuss for number 4 negotiations with the WWPEA and WWPSA. The board did discuss matters involving anticipated or pending litigation, specifically potential litigation with the NJSIA, and those were the matters that were discussed. It was not matters involving personnel for number 8, and it was not HIV review for number 9. So just wanted to make that clear for the record.
Okay. What? I missed it.
I
Yes.
interjected. I apologize.
Yes. In my anxiousness to get on with things, I missed the opportunity for public comment. I apologize. But that's where we are right now. We invite thoughts and reactions on items of concern to the public. Please come up, give your name and address, and please hold your comments to 3 minutes.
Thank you. Linda Jeevers, 20 Hawthorne Drive, West Windsor. Very good presentations. They're excellent. I enjoyed them. I used to be on strategic planning years ago, and it's just, well, the time's going by. But you did a great job, and it's good to see that tradition and all that enthusiasm and excitement continue. If anyone would like a copy of the Howard Hughes presentation from the May 10th Planning Board meeting, it is available. All you have to do is call the West Windsor Clerk's office, ask for a CD. The PowerPoint, if we were to print it, would be about 72 pages, and they don't have the capability of actually printing it, so they're putting it on CDs if you'd like it. It's also too big a file, apparently, to put on the municipal website. So just want to let everyone know if you're interested in that, just call the West Windsor Township Clerk's office. I'd also encourage the school board to do an analysis of the projections of school children from the Howard Hughes presentation. The way they're analyzing it and the way we would analyze it, and certainly have a lot of background and a lot of data to say how many children we would project from a single-family house, a townhouse, or an apartment. So I would encourage you to do that, and also, let the public know what the results of your analysis is. And finally, I had volunteered at the Innovation Fair at High School North, and it was an incredible event to see, children at such a young age doing all sorts of, STEM projects and all, robotics and all, and testament to the excellent education that you teachers are giving them. And I'd just like to thank the WWP Education Foundation, especially Diane Hassling and Anita Gruenberg, and so many others for this wonderful event. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Joanne Lasky, Hunt Court, West Windsor. First, my son was a participant in the 4th grade math program tonight, and I just thought it was important to share that he's a child who hasn't really liked math in the past, and he was eager, like missed soccer eager, to come tonight to share with the board what he's doing in class. So I thought that was kind of a testament to how the math program is going in the 4th grade level. That's an aside. So listening to the strategic plan, I wasn't interested in, necessarily compelled to comment, but one thing we do in this district is we teach well, that we know. And strategic plan number 1 and number 2 kind of further enhance that with strategies in place to support that. But number 3, social emotional learning, caught my eye. Certainly it's something that I find important, and I've spoken about it as a representative of PTAs. But what I think is interesting with the way it was presented is it connects it all. So there have been pieces that have been missing. We've talked about it for a couple of years now, and the idea of how do I'm a parent who volunteers a lot, and I'm in a lot of different buildings, and we've been talking about consistency. We've been talking about consistency across curriculum. We've been talking about consistency across schools. And so I'm happy to see this as a strategy. I think it's important for you as a board to hear a parent perspective. The tie between social emotional learning and curriculum is an important piece, and it's something that parent groups have been voicing for quite some time. So I'm pleased to see it as a strategy. A lot of these things have been happening kind of in a vacuum of sorts, and I am eager to see how the collaborative and cross-disciplinary efforts further develop. So I just felt compelled to share that with you. And I also think one last piece of it, mental health that was just mentioned. We're a pretty advanced and educated community around here. We pride ourselves on that, and I think we are educated enough to be able to care for ourselves. And so I'm seeing it as a parent and community. Middle school, there's a new group that grew out of the kind of the kids developed it. And so, the parents at first weren't sure what it was, but the kids that are engaged in it are fully engaged, and the other kids are like, whatever, but they know it's there. And I just think that's something that should be commended. Thank you.
Thank you.
Late good evening, everyone. I know it's late for everybody. I'm Prabhat from Rockwood Drive, and I want to thank the math supervisor, the teaching resources, and the teachers who have put in the effort to increase the rigor of curriculum related to math. However, it may or may not be consistent across classrooms. This was long due, and all of the students should have access to more enriched curriculum. I fully appreciate that. However, it may not be a good replacement for the A&E program itself. I feel this should be in conjunction, or it should have been in conjunction with the A&E program. Now, my son is in 4th grade, and I can only tell from his experience. So essentially, over the full year, Mr. Green came to his class 3 times, and he still remembers fondly those lectures or those interactions. The first one he said was on exponents, second one was on large numbers, third one was on 12 days of Christmas. How do you do the gifts so that going to the Christmas you are done with the gifts for everyone? So he was like really excited with how it was presented. Past that, he kind of like, this was done in November maybe. Past that, he kept waiting for similar kind of challenging material or interesting material. It never came through. Now, I don't say that he is like a math genius or something like that, but I would say that I said, are you doing any kind of enrichment or any kind of things? I saw like overall in a week, he gets about 10 minutes of math homework overall. I see him doing. So essentially, there are some enrichment problems at the end of it. And I was saying, okay, why are you not doing those? So he's saying, we are not required to do that. So is it something which is, I think, I'm not saying that he would have been in any program if he had taken it, or he would have gotten access to, but I'm sure that kind of material to the student who was in any program, that kind of enrichment problems they would be doing on regular basis, it will be kind of enforced. It would be, and the students would be evaluated on the basis of that. I don't pay much weightage to his math score, but in fall I think he scored on 99, and on spring he scored 97, I think. But what I do care about is what he's learning. I do care about is the learning stretching his mind? Is he able to exercise? Is he able to develop higher level of thinking? So from that point of view, I'm sorry about just going over, but from that point of view, I think this program is a good initiative, but it is not a replacement for any level of program where you have a dedicated teacher who is very well versed. And actually, I see there's a difference between teaching and delivering. By teaching, I really mean ingrained, the material being ingrained with the teacher, and being able to make extensions, being able to make more enrichment from that material, being able to, rather than just being able to say what is there in the material. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Now we go to committee reports. Oh, yeah, you want to?
Just regarding the Howard Hughes projections, I've run an analysis and I've presented it. It's on the website. So I've done that. I've done that presentation. It's a lot more than they project. Let's just put it that way. What we don't have the benefit of is, and even in their presentation, they referred to a mixed method approach, where they selected specific neighborhoods and combined it with the Rutgers model, and they haven't shown us their math. We can surmise an average, but we can't pull it across how they're actually calculating apartments versus townhomes versus single family, because they don't give us that number in the presentation. I was there the entire evening, stayed for every comment, and there was never any specific allocation or discussion about what the actual mathematical formulas that the Howard Hughes has selected to utilize, other than saying it's a mixed method approach. Mixed method could be a lot of things. So our numbers based on the current number of units, and that could change, it's subject to change over time, is there for the community under the About Us, under residential growth. So just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Okay. Administration.
Thank you. The Administration and Facilities Committee met on Tuesday, May 16th, and like our other committees, we began meeting with the action plan committees and had a preview of what was described tonight. I want to thank everybody who came to talk to us that night, because we were able to provide input and feedback on the action plans, and we appreciate that. The committee talked about the need for a demographic study. We reviewed a two-part proposal from Dr. Grip for a contract through our district architect. Dr. Grip was the person who provided us with our last demographic study, which was done in January of 2013. We understand from the proposal that the cost for the service would be $22,500, and for an additional $15,000, we could get a housing turnover analysis. The committee believes that this is important information, and we support that expense. Next, the committee reviewed an updated proposal from a group of current and retired faculty from Community Middle School to provide a commemorative recognition plaque in the lobby of the school to commemorate the 50 years of service for Dr. Downs. The committee supports that purchase. Next, we discussed the options on the proposed contract renewal with U.S. Security, which is the company that provides us with the Eyes on the Door services. We are awaiting further information from Ed Data concerning the possibility of minor adjustments to the pricing structure for more experienced officers. Our committee is going to next meet on June 13th, and we're taking a field trip. We're going to start our meeting with a walkthrough of Maurice Hawk School, and then continue our business back here at the board office.
Just one update to share with the full board. Today, we received the invoice for the demographic study, so we'll be able to move that forward at the June 6th board meeting, so we can begin to.
FCHD is going to be
Yes, right, but it's a pass-through service. Right.
Okay, any other questions on administration? Okay, curriculum?
Okay, the Curriculum Committee also met on May 16th, and the co-chairs from each of the three strategic goal committees presented a draft of their respective action plans, and we provided feedback. And there will be a formal presentation, which we just saw. The Curriculum Committee reviewed the final grade distributions for each department at High School North and High School South for 2014-15 and the 2015-16 school years. There was little difference between the 2 years, with some slight increases in final grades in the 2015-16 school year from the previous year. The Curriculum Committee also reviewed the superintendent's recommendation to allow 3 research projects to take place within the district. All institutional review board protocols will be followed. We also looked at the website that is being designed for the summer reading program, and we reviewed the math teachers and math supervisors' recommended adoption of the Big Ideas Math Algebra 2 by Basel and Larson textbook for the Advanced Algebra 2 College Prep and Honors courses. We read the textbook evaluation forms completed by the math teachers and organized by the math supervisor. The math teachers and math supervisor followed the district practice for evaluation and recommendation of new instructional materials, and therefore the committee supports the adoption of this textbook. The Curriculum Committee recommends acceptance of the following donations: a monetary donation amount of $500 from Maurice O. Onyuka, a parent of district students, and a matching donation of $500 from Your Cause LLC, trustee for New York Life, for the High School North Band. And then also from the same parent, a $1,000 donation and a matching donation from the same Your Cause trustee for New York Life for general use by the High School North. And then also a used Yamaha bass clarinet from Anu Venkat and Jag Sundaranam, parents of a district student, for the use by the district. In accordance with board regulations, the Curriculum Committee recommends disposal of 1,254 books from the High School South Media Center, because they are so outdated that they no longer serve as worthy instructional tools. The committee also recommends the authorization of the 5th year of a 5-year shared services agreement between West Windsor Township and the West Windsor-Plainsboro Regional School District for cable television, and the 5th year of a 5-year interlocal services agreement between Plainsboro Township and the West Windsor-Plainsboro Regional School District for cable television. The committee also recommends the authorization of a 3rd year of a 5-year agreement with Middlesex County Regional Education Services Commission to provide administration of non-public funds for non-public school students within the district in accordance with State Board of Education guidelines. And the committee recommends approval of the following technology-related one-year agreements with, first with Frontline Technology Group, which is formerly Teachscape, to provide end-user licensing for the Danielson Framework evaluation training and certification for 5 district administrators. Exemplars Library to provide online resources for district-wide K-5 math instruction. Swivel to provide 40 Pro Team member licenses. And West Interactive Services Corporation to provide Sharp School web hosting services. We also recommended approval for teacher travel, 2 advisors to accompany middle school and high school students to National History Day at University of Maryland in June, and 3 advisors to accompany middle school and high school students to the Future Problem Solvers International Competition at the University of Wisconsin in June. And we also recommend approval for the following professional development opportunities for this summer, which 4 teachers to attend Quest 2017 Scholars Program offered through Princeton University Teacher Prep, 1 economics teacher to attend an AP Economics Summer Institute, a language for AP, 1 language arts teacher to attend an AP English Language Summer Institute, a world language teacher to attend an AP Spanish Language and Culture Summer Institute. All will be held at Rutgers in New Brunswick. And 1 math teacher to attend an AP Calculus AB Summer Institute, a science teacher to attend an AP Chemistry Summer Institute, and a language arts teacher to attend an AP English Literature and Composition Summer Institute, all held at Middlesex County College. And a special education teacher to attend 1 week of Wharton Gillingham teacher training at the Bridge Academy. We also support the list of recommended consultants to provide services in relation to and funded by the 2017-18 Star Talk Hindi and Urdu Summer Program. And we recommend the approval of the High School South senior class trip to Disney World in March of 2018 at a cost of approximately $1,475 per student, and the High School North cheerleaders to Pine Forest Cheer Camp in Greeley, Pennsylvania in August. The cost of that trip is approximately $260 per student. And we will also next meet on Tuesday, June 13th.
Any questions on the curriculum? Okay, finance?
May 16th, we started the session with strategic planning committee presentation. So thank you everyone for giving us the presentation. Okay, next we reviewed the agenda items. The finance agenda was reviewed. The committee supported agenda items. Of particular note are a resolution to determine the form of the boundary funding, professional service rate, transfer of capital project interest income, and the annual June resolution to add funds to capital reserve. While not a formal part of the upcoming board agenda, the committee discussed a number of elements associated with use of referendums versus use of capital reserve. Committee members identified misconceptions some committee members have about referendums. One is that even a successful referendum needs a great deal of Board of Education time and effort. And even if it is a successful referendum, time for it adds considerably to the date on which a facility is ready for occupancy. In addition, some in the community mistakenly believe that state debt service aid is paid up front in a lump sum to the district. In fact, such aid is paid out in annual installments over the life of the bond issue. Then we discussed the prescription insurance renewal. Recently, our broker informed the district of the results of its canvassing the prescription provider community. The interest shown in servicing the district resulted in the district administration recommending continuation with Horizon with no increase in premium over the current rates. As of July 1st, 2017, the second year of the two-year agreement with Delta Dental starts. The second year reflects a 0 increase in premium. Capital reserve resolution. A year ago, a June action was $2.5 million, somewhat of a compromise among committee members. Some wanted an increase to $3 million, while others supported a continuation at $1.75 million level at the previous 6 years. Back in 2008, the resolution called for 4 million, while in 2007, the level was 0. After some deliberation, the committee supports the June 2017 capital reserve resolution level of 1.75 million. Budget process review committee recommendations. In the current budget, what worked, what did not work. After discussion, the committee felt that the present practices, including the use of Board of Education retreats, was working well and should be continued. We also discussed the transportation. A number of districts across the state utilize the state of New Jersey fueling stations to fuel their buses during their operations. The district has met resistance from the state officials in establishing this for our district. An appeal has been made to Senator Greenstein for assistance in timely procurement of approval for the district. With West Windsor Township forcing the exit from the Wallace Road facilities list since 1990, the district will soon use its district fueling station. And lastly, we talked about the bond refunding. The district's financial advisor received proposals from underwriters and banks for the refunding effort. The advisor recommends using RBC capital markets, and this recommendation is reflected in the board agenda. RBC was used in the 2015 refunding effort. In the refunding public hearing, estimated net savings for the refunding were projected to exceed 700,000. Unless financial conditions shift a great deal, this expectation should hold. We also had the demographic study. The superintendent reviewed the discussion to date. This included a growing interest in, at additional cost, a housing turnover analysis. The committee agreed that this was a worthwhile addition to the study. And we also discussed the non-affiliated employees. The superintendent discussed this group of employees in relation to the coming school year. Next meeting will be held at June 13, Tuesday, 7 p.m. at Central Office here. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions on the finance items? Okay, now we come to administration. Can I have a motion on items 1 to 6, plus there are 2 addenda, the blue and the yellow, Rachel and Carol. This Rachel, Michelle. Michelle, Rachel. Whatever. Hey, come on, it's 10 o'clock. All right. Any questions on the administration items?
Ms. Hertz?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
Mr. Wiley-Jean?
Yeah.
Mr. Taylor-Jean?
Yes.
Ms. Cage?
Yes.
Mr. Flaherty?
Yes.
6-0.
Okay, curriculum, can I have a motion on items 1 to 9? YZ and Dana. Any questions on the curriculum?
I'm going to, number 1. I asked to see a copy of the book. I never saw one, so I'm going to abstain on number 1.
Okay.
Yeah, me too. For the number 1, parents sent me the comments about number 1, so I'd like to see
What's the
textbook, because I have not seen the textbook yet, so I'd like to see the textbook. Some parents have negative feedback on this.
you got what was the feedback you got?
I think there's some controversy right now. I'd like to know more about this. I don't quite understand this item yet. So,
The book?
yeah, first item.
I was just curious what the
Some told me to vote for it, and some told me not to vote for it, but I didn't spend time on this item yet. It's my problem. So I might have to abstain from this item. Thanks.
All right, well, we have 2 abstentions. And any,
Tony, I just want to add one thing. I appreciate that the teachers and supervisors did their job, and that's excellent. but as a board, we have to vote on this, and I'm not going to vote for a book that I have never had to hold in my hands and look at.
Okay. Any other comments?
Can we delay vote on this? Can we delay vote on this item?
Is,
That's correct.
okay.
I'd just like to say that if I looked at an Algebra 2 textbook, I'm not sure I could
I-
even tell if it was good. I don't even
Well,
know.
I actually majored in math at Brown, and I have looked at a lot of high school textbooks, and I would be very interested in seeing this one.
All right, and that's fine. And you want to see it also, and I hope, what does that do with the timing of the purchase of the book? Is there a problem?
So, we were planning on cutting a purchase order tomorrow to move forward because the district is in the process of shutting down the purchase order process for this current school year, and we have the monies currently. It would mean that we would have to delay until the June 6th board meeting the vote on this and whether or not we could go forward with the actual purchase of the book.
So,
We're talking about books for all Algebra 2 students, both college prep and honors, because at the end of the process, after the teachers looked at the books, both the college prep teachers and the honors teachers decided that they wanted the same book. So we're probably talking around 600 copies, I believe.
and we're putting our judgment, you have a right to do that. That's, you're an elected member, and you can vote on, make your decision on anything else. But, okay.
Like I said, I believe you asked me, or asked over the weekend how the curriculum committee reviewed, how we reviewed the process. And as a board member, we are supposed to oversee the process and not run the school. So even if we are highly qualified math educators and can read the books and understand what's in them, it is not, as long as the district is following a practice that has been in place with very detailed analysis of how they're reviewing all the books, then, and they all agree on the certain book, then we should be approving it. So.
Well, Dana, if you're comfortable doing that, that's fine. I'm not comfortable doing that.
That's my, I'm just stating why I would be voting for that, and it's your prerogative to do what you wish to do.
I see.
Yeah, as a committee member for the curriculum, I think the reason to replace it is based on the sort of outdated textbook today. And personally, I see the process being complete with teachers involved and supervisors selection compared for books. As a curriculum committee member, I would love to read the book myself as well. But I think the process itself seems to be transparent and clear. And I also ask some of the graduating students, including my own son, who are sitting there listening to the presentation because they love to see Mr. Green. I asked them about their opinion compared to two books, and their answer is more like, based on their experiences. Obviously, it's a small sample. They were telling me the books are typically for references and homeworks. The instruction itself, the teachers tend to customize and tailor to the need a lot. So it is based on that kind of discovery and understanding. I personally would support this.
Okay, I will support it too then. Okay, because this son is the president of the math club.
Okay. I also just want to say that if we were to look at it, we would be putting our judgment above the teachers who are actually going to be teaching the class. They know what they want. Even the people that, members of the public are free to comment, and we all got there was all the email where one of the members of the public showed us the Amazon reviews, and of the 7 Amazon reviews, there was one bad one, got 1 star, and that seemed to be the standard by why we shouldn't be using the book. I tend to trust the teachers that are actually going to use the book to teach the course. So, that's the reason I'm supporting it.
Tony, I have a comment.
And you cannot. It's up to you.
No, I just wanted to add something. I trust the teachers, absolutely, and their judgment. If it were the teachers' call on this, that would be great and fine, but the board is supposed to vote on this.
Yes,
And so therefore, I have to look at the book before I vote on it.
Right.
Otherwise, there's no point in us voting. I think my vote means something, and I
Yes.
take it very seriously. I also am wondering why, when I emailed the question on Friday to the curriculum committee and the superintendent saying, I would like to see a copy of this book and have time to look at it, and I never was offered the opportunity to look at the book. Does that mean we don't have the book anywhere in the district? I find that hard to believe. I think that was a pretty simple request.
Okay. All right, any other discussion on curriculum? Yeah, on curriculum. Larry?
Thank you. Ms. Krug?
Yes.
Mr. Weisy-Jean?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor-Jean?
Yes.
That is yes for 1 through 9?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you. Ms. Hertz?
I'm abstaining on one and yes for everything else.
Thank you. Ms. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Flares?
Yes.
On number 1, 501. On the other items under curriculum and instruction, 6-0.
Okay, finance, I have a motion on 1 to 27. It's a big night. Taylor and YZ. Any questions on the finance items?
Mr. Weisy-Jean?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor-Jean?
Yes.
Ms. Hertz?
Yes.
Ms. Krug?
Yes.
Ms. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Flares?
Yes.
6-0.
Okay, personnel, I have a motion on items 1 and 2, and there's one personnel addendum, right? There's just this one. I have a motion on Dana and Carol. Any questions or comments on the personnel? No corrections? Everything's- Larry?
Mr. Taylor-Jean?
Yes.
Ms. Hertz?
Yes.
Ms. Krug?
Yes.
Mr. Weisy-Jean?
Yes.
Ms. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Flares?
Yes.
6-0.
I just want to acknowledge 3 retirements. We have Gregory Berger is retiring after 13 years as a social studies teacher at North. Karen Shannon is a science teacher at South, retiring after 17 years. And Patricia McLaughlin, an EDP site supervisor, is retiring after 28 years with the district. I want to thank them and wish them luck in the future. Can I have a motion on approving the minutes for April 9th? Michelle and Taylor. Any comments on the minutes? Those in favor of approving, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Any liaison reports? Any new business? Second opportunity for public comment. Anyone? Thank you. We have to go into closed session, so I'm going to read this. I have to read the statement. Whereas the Open Public Meetings Act authorizes the boards of education to meet in executive session under certain circumstances, whereas the Open Public Meetings Act requires the board to adopt a resolution at a public meeting to go into private session, now therefore be it resolved that the West Windsor-Plainsboro Regional School District Board of Education resolved that it is necessary to meet in executive session to discuss certain items involving
We will actually only be discussing one item.
Yeah.
Matters involving negotiations and specifically discussion of superintendent contract. And
I was going to say that.
the other items we will not be discussing.
Yes. Okay, be it further resolved that any discussion held by the board, which need not remain confidential, will be made public as soon as feasible. The minutes of the executive session will not be disclosed until the need for confidentiality no longer exists. Be it further resolved that the board will return to open session to conduct business at the conclusion of the executive session if necessary.
Are you returning, or are you?
We don't
not?
anticipate it to be necessary. I'm reading.
Sorry.
I never get to read these. So we don't plan. So we don't plan to come back out and vote on anything. So don't wait for us. Okay, can I have a motion to go into closed session? Dana and Michelle. Those in favor of closed session, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we'll meet in the back in 5 minutes.